As you can see, this week's parable is the wise and foolish builders. Within this parable which Jesus told, we have two men who each make a very different choice. And Rianne and I were thinking about different choices that we make on a daily basis. Here are some things that we came up with. For example, maybe for a little snack, do you choose to have an apple?
Or do you choose the unhealthy chocolate button?
Or maybe, do you decide whether you're going to keep your room nice and tidy and clutter-free?
Or can you not be bothered to put all your toys away and you just leave it a mess and you can hardly see the floor?
Or do you choose to be really studious and sit and do all your schoolwork?
Or do you just want to sit and play on your iPad all day?
You see, we all make different choices on a daily basis, but actually sometimes there are choices that have even bigger consequences and are maybe a little bit more difficult to make. For example, whenever we see someone who's on their own in the playground, what do? Do we go over and speak to them and be their friend?
Or even though we see that they're maybe lonely and upset, do we just leave them and ignore it and hope it goes away?
You see, the choices that we make all have different consequences. Today in our story, the two men make very different choices. One is known for being wise and the other is known for being foolish. But what do each of these words mean?
So the first man is the wise man. And when someone is wise, that means that they use their experiences and knowledge to make sensible decisions and judgments.
But if someone is known for being foolish, their actions are not sensible and they do not make good decisions or judgments. So what does this parable mean? The foolish man in the parable which Jesus told us made a silly choice and he did not think of the consequences of his choice. He decided to build his house on the sand and he didn't think about what would happen if there was a storm or if there was lots of wind and rain. His house did not have a good, strong foundation and when a storm came, it was destroyed. You see, sometimes we make choices and don't think about the consequences of our actions. But the Bible tells us that we should always listen to God and always follow His word.
That brings us on to the second man. He was the wise man. So in the parable, the wise man, he made a sensible and well thought out choice. He looked ahead and decided that the best place to build his house would be on the rock. He knew that if he built it on the rock, even if a storm came and there was strong wind, his house would not be knocked over because it was built on a strong foundation. So this parable teaches us that we should try to be like the wise man who built his home upon that rock.
What Jesus is teaching us here is that just like the man who built his house, which had a strong foundation, our lives should have a strong foundation too. But what does this mean? This means that we should have Jesus at the very centre of our lives and that we should listen to what the Bible tells us and use the Bible as a guide for our life. As a result, we know that when we face things which are difficult or when we maybe face times of sadness or loneliness, we know that we can turn to God and the Bible and ask God to be with us. We know that God will be with us and He will help us through whatever situation that we may face because He loves us. Therefore, today we should make sure that we put our trust in Him and that we have built our lives on a strong foundation around His word. Be like the wise man and build your foundation on God. Thank you so much for listening, boys and girls. Now it is time for our memory verse.
Bye.
Bye.